The world probably would be a better place if more people just wore sweatpants a lot. Everybody works real hard. Everybody's got a job. Look for God's below above. What we need, what we want, what we love. Everybody works real hard. Everybody's got a job. I started singing that, thinking of how hard everybody else besides me works. I think a lot about doctors, nurses, convenience store workers. Like, I put them in the same category, and I put what I do in just like whatever. Maybe I should have more respect. Well, I have respect, I guess you could say, for the trade, considering the entire building process, which should be considered, but considering the building process as it is, all things considered, what I do as a trade is important, but sometimes I question, sometimes, demographic, but then I also think, well, I work for a lot of I do work for a lot of people who are like doctors or this or that, and sometimes I think, man, this house is too nice. But then I think, I want doctors to be comfortable. Like, doctors should be at peace, in a sense. Like, they should be comfortable. Most of the ones I work for, they have cool hobbies. They do a lot of other things, and they should. They should enjoy life like the rest of us. They should have leisure. We want doctors to be comfortable. Not necessarily when they're prescribing us drugs and doing all the bad things that... I shouldn't even say bad things, but someone like me who doesn't focus on nutrition the way he should, I've got problems. And when I had my tooth extracted, one little thing, well, it was actually bigger than I thought it would be, but one little thing, right there. And if there weren't dentistry, I'd be dead. I mean, that thing was so infected. my brain burned not even my brain, but my whole head just burned in an indescribable way. And the dude who took it out and his assistant, they were just the nicest people. Serendipitously, I ran into his assistant, this woman at the store. A couple days before, I was buying some avocados. I can't remember what I buy a lot of avocados. And she said, "Oh, that looks good." Just someone standing in line, And then there she is pulling out my tooth. And "Oh, you look familiar." "Oh, yeah. They encouraged me to not smoke because it was bad, for my gums and my teeth. I have really bad oral hygiene. It's horrible because of. Anyway, when I think of essential workers, a lot of the times I think of like convenience store people and like surgeons, you know, and I just think of how valuable what they do is. So that's what started me thinking about this. But then I was also thinking about like because it was the words, so like sometimes you say words and it's like, oh, that's not true, but then you think, well, wait a minute, how is it true? And the idea was, even if you don't have like a job, like being someone here on earth, like you have a job, you have something you do, you provide something, you work for something. Job is also associated with Job, and Job is associated with faith. So in that sense, like, if you're going to create a polarity, then you either have good faith or bad faith, or you have faith in something, you work for something, you put your effort into something, you manifest something in this world, free will. So like you have this purpose, you have this destiny, you have this predestiny, you have free will. And no matter how you slice it, we're working for something. And it's hard to tell in a screwed up world if we're not doing things that seem like work. It's hard to tell in well, I shouldn't even say a screwed up world, but you know what I mean. It's hard to say what work is sometimes. Because it's hard to say what will reach me. The things that have reached me have been so bizarre and have come in every size and shape and then from every direction. And I don't just mean people, I just mean thoughts and experiences and so on, just the littlest thing or the hugest thing, and the way all that intersects. Everybody works real hard. Everybody's got a job. Work for God's below above. What we need and what we love. Everybody's got a job. Everybody works real hard. Work for pleasure, work through pain. Off to work and home again. Alright. Well, I made this video. While I'm making this video, oh, I hope I don't screw it up. Yeah, I was talking a little bit yesterday about this, and I'd made this yesterday. The idea is I need a 12 by 12 because I kind of want to keep the 12 by 12, and the 12 by 12 gives me a 6 in the radius, which I found is important in studying a tetrahedron, even though here I'm trying to study like a hemispheric disc that spins and creates ellipses, not in perspective, but before I study perspective I want to get like the collapsed cross section the right way. So I was gonna do this. I made this yesterday, and then first I did 12 by 12 with the regular lines of the sheet of the legal pad. And it's interesting that a legal pad is yellow, but like legal paper is approximately root 3 by 1 when standard paper is root 2 by 1, and a legal pad, which is yellow, is root 2 by 1, but it's yellow, and legal sized paper is approximately root 3 by 1, like those longer sheets of paper that they use in legal documents. But then the yellow paper is called a legal pad. Well, it all has to do with root 3 over 1, because you have the root 3, approximately root 3 by 1 legal pad, or legal paper for like printing and documents. But then a legal pad's yellow. Yellow's associated with Leo. Yellow, Leo. Which, if the east is 0, which has to do with, in the old days, they used to make maps so that the east was on top, not the north, because the sun rises in the east before, like, the earth was determined to be round and they started putting the north on top. Never mind that they now make maps, or, you know, with the south on top and all that. But so no matter how you slice it, legal's associated with the Eisensteinian omega. Which brings us back to this. And then, alright, right, this picture, which is what I made today. And it's important, it's worth noting, and very important. This space right here, out of this whole picture, it wasn't the point of making this picture, but this space right here is one of the most important things in the world. That. Well, that gap would be 1 minus 2 root 2 over 3. That little itty bitty gap from there to there. One of the most important things in the world. Yeah, so anyway, looking at this on the way home today, I don't really want to say it, but I feel like I got to. I just can't help myself. Like, okay, so I look at stuff, and one of the things I look at is license plates. It's one of the things I do. And what you look at responds to you. And it was like 44. I'm not sure if it was 4416688, but it was similar to that. There was definitely a 66, and then the next two numbers, at least one of them was 8, and I'm not sure if they both were, but that's what I read in my mind. Like, so if I'm not sure, I just let it. I was, you know, I knew that the anyway, and it just came 6688. Like, sometimes if I'm not sure, I just say, well, what was it? And then I let what comes in come in. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, because it's the subconscious. And this is actually a super important point about synchronicities and, like, quote unquote magic or whatever, or like the mythos, or like the left hand path, or like listening. The more symbolism we use, like, it's not necessarily that, like, symbolism is magic or this or that. Everything's magic, everything's God, everything's all that, you know. But, like, it's not necessarily that symbolism is magic. But the more symbols or languages or whatever that we can draw connections between in our mind, especially symbolically, and if we marry that with our logical mind, like, the more symbolism we have, language is symbolism, math is symbolism, music is symbolism, especially too, if you're thinking of symbolism, the fact that there's a symbol and symbolism, and a symbol is both percussion, so it's dealing with timing, and it's a tone, so it's dealing with music, and it's the word symbol spelled differently. But that, you know, So how that all ties in. But so a symbol, and when we're thinking of like written things, it's anything. It's any shape, any sigil, any insignia, anything. Anything written is that type of symbol, and any sound is the other type of symbol, and the way those things meet. Anyway, so I saw this license plate. It was 44166, and I think 88, or that's what came to the noggin. And for me, the number 441 specifically means, well, its main symbolism to me is pay extra, which means do more work, like do the extra thing. I won't say why. And the other thing it means to me is draw, because there are two fours and a four. There are two fours, and when I see, so it could be DDA in a simple cipher to the alphabet, 441 DDA. But to me, when I see two letters, I either put a B or an R in, and typically with numbers, I do an R, because there's two, and two looks like an R. Two in Lee can be an R, can be a Z, it can be an S, it can be a B, but it can be infinite other things. But that's where my mind goes to. So it was like pay extra, draw, and then 6688. I already knew because I've been thinking about it, like making this image, because I was debating whether to use this, and basically I was going to put this, if I put this on my little glass table with a light underneath, I could use this to trace things and get my 12 lines, except I was going to maybe make it you'll see when I make it, but when I make my spin, I'm going to make a spinning ellipse animation, you'll see. But like, I was going to make a 12 by 12, but then these 12s were too big because it wouldn't fit on the page, so I made this, so I did this so I could have the smaller 12 by 12, so then I could fit it on one page. But then my circle would only be about this big, and I was like, that's going to be aggravating, and I'm not going to be able to get this type of detail into it. This was already hard enough, plus I didn't make my little circles in here, or my little circles in here rather, which is what I wanted to do, these and these. But anyway, this is the geometry I had to do to see. I took this image, which I made videos about before, which has to do with this tetrahedron, because this fits through, and this is the size of the big circle in here, the big circle. So see, I got my little gap, whereas I think it was this one. Let's see. No, that's the one that's the same size. Yeah, so that's the one that's a little bit smaller. That one won't fit over no matter what, because there's that little distance of the gap, because this shape, well, it's what this was cut out of. So it's the size of the circle that's not a great circle, that's the circle of the triangle that makes up the tetrahedron, whereas the circle of the diameter of the tetrahedron is this guy. And I made this comparison before, but this gap, that little itty bitty gap, is the difference between the radius of the triangle and the radius of the tetrahedron, which you can't see in here because this isn't clear, but like the center point in the middle of this tetrahedron. And the whole thing with this is the way that I cut these shapes. I've shown it in other videos, but all these shapes are cut in the same way, so no matter how you hold this, in what direction, essentially, if you consider the way that I cut them, because there's a cut here, it's almost like a triangle swastika. Like there's a line here, and we shouldn't fear that name anymore. It was stolen, You know, it was stolen by a bad narrative. So, you know, fuck it. You know, don't be afraid of like the things that they call bad that are stolen things, right? But anyway, all of these are essentially spinning in the same direction. No matter how you hold the face, everything, all the other ones are spinning in the same direction, so to speak. So I want to see a tetrahedron. I want to animate a tetrahedron that's spinning with all its faces spinning in the directions of these cuts, and see how that moves in a sphere. And that's one of the impetuses that, because then if I know how to make an ellipse, I can show these sides of the entire circle as it rotates. And that's part of what's important about this video, is that if you watch my Saint Tessera video, which I made, that has all my tetrahedron pages that I've made thus far, which are incomplete, and it has to do with the way in which you rotate a tetrahedron in like the normal ways. But I want to learn how to do it every way, every which way, you know. And I feel kind of bad because I was debating about calling it Mother Tessera. Also Sister Act, Tesseract, Sister Act. But anyway, if you watch that video, the way in my pages, the way that I determine the 8/9 quadrants, or the 2√2/3 length. At first, I studied the triangle. In my first couple pages, I studied the triangle with a radius of 1, and that gave me a tetrahedron whose radius quadrants was 9/8, or 3/2√2. Doing the math, flipping it around, as it turns out, it's just reciprocal. And the tetrahedron has with a 1 radius of the tetrahedron encapsulated in a sphere. Its triangles have a radius of 2√2/3. Anyway, if you watch that video, it was like in one of the first pages where I try to determine, it was a much more complicated, well, it took a lot less like lines and drawing, but like conceptually it was a lot more of a hodgepodge. Whereas in this, but what I did do right, I think, in those pages, is using a unit of 1/6, making 6 little circles inside my sphere, because in those important directions of looking at the tetrahedron, it's so useful to use that 6, because that breaks the square face into the half and the third, and there's just a lot of utility in that 6ness, which also gives you a 12 diameter. That ties back into the importance of base 60 and the clock face, which is a video I haven't made yet, but I haven't made my complete good one yet. I think it's coming soon. It's been coming for like 2 or 3 years, but, well, definitely, I think the last video I made was almost exactly a year ago. Seems like yesterday. It's crazy. But anyway, this is a lot more fundamental, because you have 2/3, which is 4/6 square, and this diagonal then is the 2√2/3. There's the math. Pretty simple. So if this outer circle is the diameter of a sphere, this 2/3 by 2/3, or 4/6 by 4/6, gives you that 2√2/3. which is how big this length would be. If the sphere that this object was encapsulated in were 1. Which isn't what I'm going to be I'm dealing strictly with the diameter in this upcoming animation, but I wanted to make it about the same size as this so that I actually had a 3-dimensional object. I really want to learn. I've been conceiving for a while how to make like a clear epoxy sphere. Like, it wouldn't be the way like super good techie people do it. It would be with like making a globe in the old-fashioned way, and then making an imprint in plaster, and then like using that imprint to somehow make some sort of epoxy something in it that I could then remove, make a couple halves, turn into a globe that's clear, and then hopefully they have this stuff called glass paper, which is like this stiff plastic. Maybe cut it up, and like I want to make like a sphere and a tetrahedron with all the important points delineated, but so that you can look through it and see it all at the same time in an actual sphere. To me, that would be a major achievement. I would love to see that, and lots of them. So maybe over time. I keep thinking like I'm gonna live forever, not noticing the fact that I'm like dying before my own eyes, aging rapidly, destroying myself, plus the ravages of time, Then I run into a prophet, prophets who are, 2,000 years old. What? Just saying. It's one of the things about full disclosure. It's not just about aliens, it's about full disclosure. That's why we can't handle the truth. But anyway, the disciples are still here. That's not just a fact. Most people would say it's not a fact. In fact, it might not be a fact. However, it's still the truth. Facts require evidence in the form of print, right? For it to be a fact, it has to be evidence in form of print. Mostly, not really, but mostly. Yeah, so anyway, that's the thing I got. Now I can use this to make a template. And what I did is I had to take this and trace it and then refine the diameter because I lost the middle piece I cut out. Or I didn't lose it, I just didn't look too hard. So I found my diameter, and then I could make this. Now I'll use this to make like another template so that I can create my 12 by 12 grid, so that I can do like this but have it spinning in both directions and just see what it looks like, and then see how that affects my my directrix and my eccentricity line and my tangents and my p's and my normals to some degree. I can't get all, for every one I won't do every tangent and normal, but I don't know, maybe as time goes on, see how that looks. And I might not even use this way to make I think I will though. I think I'll use this way to make a ellipse. I think I'll avoid the string thing, because I want to know how to do it exactly so that if I need a calculation, and that's the thing too, is like there's all with math, it's all these calculations, numbers. And for me, I guess that's why I did this too, is because like I'm a curmudgeon in a lot of ways for a straight edge and a compass. Which had to do with pay extra. which is paying a little more than full price. Oh yeah, the 6 and the 8 was that I needed to separate this into 6 1/6s, but in order to do so I had to draw the extra circle so that I could get my extra Visica Pisces. So that's 6 1/6 up to here, 8 1/6. And I kind of knew that in my mind, because I'd been kind of constructing this thing in my mind the other day when I was thinking about the tetrahedron. I wasn't going to use this for my ellipse, but as soon as I saw that license plate, I was like, tick, 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 tick. Okay, fine, because I'm wicked impatient. I'm already pissed off that this animation isn't done. Never mind that I haven't started it. But that's the whole deal too with like quantum computing versus binary. When you're tying into that other side of the mind and using symbolism rationally, like what it means to you, and not just going off on a mania, which I also tend to do. It was a bit of a manic day, but I held it pretty well. Because you gotta hold the mania at bay just as much as you gotta hold the demons at bay. It's all fucking demons, man. But if you can sustain the mania, what's left? If you get blown away in the winds of the mania, you're a kite whose string has snapped. Good fucking luck. You're gonna hit the depression, right? But if you can hold tight during that mania, then you're not a kite, you're a net. You're a filter. The air's just blowing through you, and you're catching things. And when it's all said and done, you got something. Let all that other shit go. Because that's just shit that's going to snap your string. You don't want to be a kite. You don't want to be a strip of plastic. You don't want to be an impervious cloth. You want to be a net. You want to be a filter. When that mania is coming, hold tight. Let all that craziness fucking go. But hold those little things. Anyway, that was my net for today, and convinced me to do the right thing. And what was nice, because splitting, the tricky part for me anyway, is splitting this line into 3 so that I could get 6. And I did it another way in my other video, but the way these line up, that was a new thing, and that gave me like what essentially works out, it's like 7.5 by 6 line to get this. But then if you put that into whole numbers, then you get a 12 by 15. This is like, and then the length of this line works to 3 root 41. 41's prime, right? I can't remember, but and there you go. Even you don't get very far away from anything, and already you're at 3 root 41. And it's like, how do you deal with that? How can you people talk about all these huge numbers and the astronomy and the entire world, all this stuff and science and blah blah blah, and thank God people deal with some shit, because if everybody thought like me, we'd already be all dead. We wouldn't be here. But like 3 root 41, never mind all the rest of the stuff in the world. And I talk about quantum computing as a useful analogy in the right brain, left brain deal, right? Never mind regular computing. And then it's like 3 root 41. What? Anyway. was happy I took the extra today to do this and to, yeah, demonstrate this line, which is super important. So I guess this is an addendum to St. Tessera. 2 over 3 in that little itty bitty gap. 1 minus 2 root 2 over 3. One of the most important things in my life. And it represents an angle of 30 degrees. I had more I was going to talk about on the symbolism, but I think that's good for today. Have a great day. Good day. Good day.